What's going on, nation? Today I'll be talking to you about a very controversial topic that no one really seems to stress the importance of, and that's salt. When I was younger, I was always told to avoid salt like it was the devil. I would always hear things like salt raises your blood pressure, causes heart disease and obesity, and how we should try to minimize our salt intake as much as possible. In fact, it was so bad that I was even always buying foods with as little sodium as possible all the time. It was nuts, guys. But that all changed when I read this book written by DiNicolantonio called The Salt Fix. Obviously, guys, over the years, I had already began to realize the importance of sodium, and I've talked about it in past videos, but reading this book really took my understanding of just how important sodium is to the next level. And honestly, I feel better than ever, my workouts are more intense, and because my main goal is to help you guys make gains, I hope you really pay attention to this video and really take what I'm about to say to heart. But before we get started, be sure to click that notification bell so you never miss a new video upload, and take a moment to follow me on Instagram for more great workout tips and fun story vlogging. Now, believe it or not, salt is an essential nutrient that our bodies depend on to live, and its proper balance is an equilibrium that our bodies strive to return to again and again. But over the past century, with the obesity epidemic becoming a real threat, especially in America, our culture has defied this biological drive, telling us to eat less and less salt, and has even labeled salt as an addiction. Also, I've heard the general health guidelines, and I know you have too. We're supposed to eat low saturated fat diets, say no to cigarettes, go for a jog, learn to relax, and dramatically cut down on our daily salt intake. But the reality is that most of us don't need to eat low salt diets, and in fact, more salt would probably be better for our overall health. But where did this notion of salt is bad come from then? Well, salt has been taking the fall for another white crystal that when consumed in high excess does lead to high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, and obesity, and it's called sugar. So the question now becomes, based on your current diet, should you be cutting down or adding more salt? Let's find out. So let's begin by acknowledging the fact that for more than 40 years, our doctors and the government and the nation's leading health associations have told us that consuming salt increases blood pressure and thus causes chronic high blood pressure. But here's the truth. There was never really any sound scientific evidence to support that idea. In fact, the majority of the population is not sensitive to the blood pressure raising effects of salt. Even for those that are, reducing salt intake to around 2,300 milligrams per day may only lower their blood pressure by a mere 0.8 to 0.2 millimeters of mercury. And if you take a look at how blood pressure is measured, this is totally insignificant. Guys, we cry salt, we sweat salt, and our cells in our bodies are bathed in salty fluids. So without salt, we would not be able to survive. Simply put, if you eliminated salt from your diet, you would die. And if you're experiencing chronic issues with your body that you just can't quite figure out when it comes to energy and recovery, not enough salt intake is probably the reason why. So perhaps we should stop worrying about getting too much salt and start worrying about not getting enough. But if salt is not the reason behind the rise in obesity, what is? Well, there's no denying that we're in the midst of a nationwide obesity epidemic that threatens our collective health, well-being, and longevity. If you guys want some scary numbers, how about 69% of adults in the United States are now overweight or obese? That is insane. How did we come to this? Well, bear with me as I explain the specifics. Believe it or not, it would seem that salt restriction is actually the problem, and here's why. Restricting our salt intake inevitably leads to insulin resistance and higher insulin levels. Then, our skeletal muscles and fat cells become more insulin resistant to prevent the higher insulin levels from causing our blood glucose level to drop too low, which could actually be potentially fatal. And then this leads to higher glucose and fatty acid levels circulating in the body, which damages blood vessels and causes more fat to be stored. So as you can see, eating too little salt rather than too much triggers this entire unnecessary downward health spiral. But we can reverse this spiral at any moment by simply getting more salt. However, as important as it is to get enough salt in our diet, It's even more important to avoid sugar. We all know that calories from sugar are especially detrimental when it comes to our ability to manage our weight and overall health. More sugar calories leads to more insulin resistance and more fat storage than any other type of calorie, even when the total caloric intake remains the same. So in a nutshell, a high sugar diet is what's killing your fat loss and muscle gains, not a high salt diet. Education is great, right guys? I bet all of you guys are watching this video and you're saying, wow, I could finally put salt on foods I like to eat again and not feel bad about it. And all that information is fine and dandy, but what about the thing you really care about and the reason why you're watching this video? How is salt related to your fitness goals? Well, the answer is simple. Consume more salt before and during exercise. Believe it or not, adding 2,300 milligrams of sodium or 1 teaspoon of salt per liter of water has been found to reduce total fluid loss during exercise. Also, dosing yourself with salt prior and during exercise will help your body cool off faster and improve blood circulation, water retention, and improve your overall performance. Why? Because your body will be more hydrated, which we know instantly increases your strength, and because improved blood flow and increased detoxification of muscle tissue will lead to faster recovery, better pumps, and more gains. Plus, an increased salt consumption will also help you prevent injuries during your workouts, better your recovery periods, and even reduce muscle and joint pains. Amazing, right? I bet you guys didn't even know half of these benefits existed when consuming more salt. And if you're having sugar cravings, salt can also help with that as well. Besides, as you just learned, indulging in sugar cravings is the problem. It is most likely why you can't seem to shake off that extra weight. Become lean and get shredded. However, even if becoming shredded is not your goal, succumbing to sugar cravings can lead to more serious diseases such as diabetes and heart disease. But before I wrap up this video, I would like to share with you guys what I've been doing so far to better my performance and training over the last few months. First of all, my salt of choice is Redmond's Real Salt, which you can pick up at Walmart or online. It's fairly cheap. And what I do for my workouts is I just have a teaspoon of salt before I get started, either directly in my mouth with my pre-workout, I don't explode, or other times I just mix it in with my BCAAs so that I slowly consume it during my workouts. Now, it might taste a little funky, but you probably won't mind it after a while. And now the reason why I picked Redmond's Real Salt is because it contains a lot of iodine, which is what we need as athletes. To give you an example why, a typical athlete loses over 50 micrograms of iodine per hour of exercise, and we're supposed to get 150 micrograms of iodine per day. And if you look at this chart, Redmond's salt is right around 178 micrograms. Now, as for my workouts, what I've experienced so far by essentially dosing myself with more salt has been a much greater pump during my training. My muscles feel fuller and stronger, and most importantly, my heart rate stays down. And now, while you may want to keep your heart rate up while doing cardio, having a high heart rate can definitely limit your performance if you're doing movements like supersets, drop sets, or even my cheat and recover method of training when you're trying to really get the maximum performance out of your muscles and spark some new growth. So there you have it, guys. If you think there is something missing from your diet, chances are that it's one thing you've been told to avoid: salt. I want to give a special thanks to my friend James for sending his book over to me. And if you guys want to read and learn more about salt and its impact on health and fitness, go over to thesaltfix.com and start reading. And I'll also post these links and these studies down in the info section below. Nothing makes me happier than expanding my own knowledge base and then sharing that information with you guys. That's why I started my channel back in 2009, and I hope I can continue to help you all reach your goals. Smash that like button if you enjoyed the video, and as always, more good stuff coming soon. See you guys.